The Borley Rectory has been dubbed the most haunted house in England. This Victorian mansion was built by the Reverend Henry D. Bull in 1863 near the River Stour in Essex. The house is 3 stories high, has 20 rooms and a complex of tunnels and caverns. Before the house was built, the horror story began in the 12th century when the land was home to a wooden church, an undertaker's house and other buildings. It was not until 1362 that the land was built as a Benedictine monastery. 7 miles southwest of Borley, there is the Burrs Convent of Nuns. A young nun falls in love with a monk at the Borley Rectory. The couple plan to escape with the help of a fellow monk at the same monastery. Little do they know, their plans have already reached the ears of the authorities. On the night they were about to escape by car, the senior monks and nuns of the 2 convents arrested and executed them. The monk who had driven the couple was beheaded, the monk and the nun of Burrs Convent were brutally hanged, and the unfortunate young nun was locked alive in a brick tunnel in the basement of the convent, where she died in agony. In 1862, the Reverend Henry D. E. Bull became the rector of Borley, where he built a large brick building as a residence the following year, adding a wing in 1875. One of the guests during 1885, P. Shaw Jeffrey, claimed to have been struck by a stone thrown by an invisible hand. His assault resembled the poltergeist phenomenon, where objects are lifted and thrown by an invisible hand. It was also in the same year that the former headmistress of the Royal Grammar School claimed that she, the parishioners and family who lived in the house, encountered the ghost of a pale-faced nun inside one of the windows during a dinner party. The incident prompted the owner to immediately seal the window. On May 7, 1892, the Reverend Henry Bull died in the Blue Room of the house, and his son of the same name, later known as Harry Bull, took over the house from his father. On July 28, 1900, the Bulls' 3 daughters saw a figure in what would later be called Nun's Walk, a walkway leading to the back of the house. When the 4th sister joined her 3 sisters to greet the strange visitor, the figure vanished before their very eyes. Harry also related that people had seen the nun and the ghost of her former lover. Many people had seen the figure of a nun in gray robes walking around the gardens and through the bushes. Monks and nuns. On October 2, 1928, the Reverend Guy Eric Smith and his wife moved into the Borley house. He heard whispers and groans. "No, Carlos, don't do it," a nickname given to the Reverend Henry while he was still alive. The Smiths also heard the doorbell ringing for no apparent reason, and even experienced small stones being thrown without anyone doing so. They also heard footsteps. Keys were missing from their places and the lights in the house suddenly came on, and the man who operated the family's carriage claimed to have seen the monk's spirit walk through the door. In October 1930, the Reverend Lionel Foister, his wife Marianne, and their adopted child moved into the house, which Henry Price, who studied the hauntings and strange phenomena in the house for many years, called the Foisters' time in the house the most extraordinary and best reported case of paranormal investigations in the field of parapsychology. From October 1930 to October 1935, Lionel and Marianne Foister and their children lived in the house, where more than 2,000 poltergeist incidents were recorded. In the following years, Marianne attempted to explain the origins of these phenomena, although she could not explain some of them, such as the appearance of unexplained messages on the walls and papers. Along with the sound of bells ringing all over the area, the appearance of Harry Bull, who had long since died, and even glass objects appearing in mid-air before falling to the floor, books, small rocks, and pieces of metal that have no known origin, often being thrown in various directions by unseen hands. They decide to perform an exorcism, but after that the situation gets worse when Marianne's body is thrown out of bed as she lies sleeping. Many times. The Foister family lived there for 5 years, but the feeling was the opposite of what people in general had heard of the reputation of the house, because they did not feel the slightest bit of fear. The real reason for moving out was because of the illness of Reverend Lionel, which affected his work. After the Foister family moved out, the house was abandoned again. Everyone who has lived in the house since it was built in 1863, and who has experienced strange events that, when investigated, have agreed that it is haunted, said Henry Price. Price was given the opportunity to study the hauntings in the house when no one dared to stay in the haunted house anymore. He leased the house for a year and declared in the Times that he was a reliable visitor to the famous haunted house, possessing intelligence, courage, judgment, and impartiality. The team's investigation of the paranormal began when the lease was granted in June 1937 to 1938. Poltergeist events occurred during the year of study, usually in the form of objects moving from their original places and footsteps. After Price and his team completed their mission, the house became the property of Captain William Gregson, who bought it outright as his and his family's last residence. The Smiths contacted the Daily Mirror in June 1929 for help. The press contacted parapsychologist Harry Price, and the Mirror sent a reporter, C.V. Wall, to the haunted mansion on June 10 to submit his first report on the apparitions. Wall heard the Smith stories and sought mysterious lights appearing in the windows while making his own report. On June 12, Harry Price arrived at the house for the first time with his secretary, Miss Lucy Kay, who reported that they had seen stones and other objects being thrown across the room, and Wall later reported seeing the body of a nun. Price returned on June 27. He reported many more phenomena, including the appearance of Catholic coins and several articles, which led to a constant stream of criticism. On July 14, 1929, the Smiths moved out due to lack of amenities and annoyances due to publicity in newspaper reports. The house finally caught fire on February 27, 1939, when Gregson fell and dropped an oil lamp while shelving books. Witnesses said that as the flames engulfed the house, he saw a translucent figure standing at the window of the house, which was eventually demolished in 1944.